Bust them on chops with the... And then we'll be back to give you guys more. Done.
So back again with a twin turbo update. So we get the long tubes off. Austin's currently putting on the forward facing headers, obviously for the twin kit. Got your hot side, got your gate. From what it looks like, gonna be a tight squeeze to get all these bolts tightened up, but nothing we can't do. We're going to start working on removing these exhaust, these course extremes, removing the over axle pipes, which obviously go over the axle, and then removing this mid pipe because all this is being sold along with these BBK headers. So currently finishing up and tightening up the passenger side header. We ended up having to get bolts for the back end or underside manifold because they were hitting up against the runners and making the headers not sit right. So had to get some of those, and we're probably going to end up doing the same thing on this side, but we'll see when we get there. Passenger side headers on, torque down. Everything clears now, so onto the driver's side header, which Austin is currently in the process right now of wrapping it, which is a pain because of how small these runners are, but so got the driver's side header wrapped up, tightened up. Only had to replace 2 bottom side header bolts. The other 2, we could leave the studs and they fit fine. So ended up just replacing 2, unlike the passenger side where we had to replace
all 4 of the bottom ones.
All 4 of the bottom ones. So turbo headers are on. Next step.
Ow.
What'd you do?
Bust them on chops with the ratchet.
Nice.
Don't feel good.
I'm not, I don't even know where I was.
Oh.
So yeah, what are we doing next?
Drop an engine in?
No, oil pan.
Now I gotta pull that off.
I forgot about that. So once we get these on, gotta drop the pan, get bungs welded on the bottom for the turbos.
We got the bungs welded in to the oil pan. We have to clean out the oil pan still though, because there's still some metal pieces left over from drilling and welding these bungs in. So we're gonna get that put on the engine. We're gonna go ahead and get all the drain lines hooked up and ready to drop the engine back into the car. And then another thing that we just got in is a BMR tubular K member. So we're gonna get rid of probably about 30 pounds or so from the factory K member that came in the car. And we'll also be working on getting all the fuel stuff put in the car today and get all the lines done, get the pumps in the car. Obviously we got to drain out the excess fuel that's left in the tank first. And we're gonna do all of that before we start prepping to get the engine put back in, just because running the lines and stuff's gonna be a lot easier without having the engine in the way. Make sure we get everything all super nice, and we'll come back once we got the oil pan all cleaned up and back on the car. Just got the oil pan on, we just gotta tighten it down. But homeboy just got off work, so we are going to pick up my car. I got new tires put on the front because the inside of them were showing cords, which gets kind of sketchy, so I want to get those fixed and replaced. So we're gonna go run and grab the car, and then we'll be back to give you guys more.
Yo! We got the passenger side drain line buttoned up, tightened down. Got a heat shield for this line just in case, because it runs pretty close to the headers and we don't want any issues with it burning through or causing leaks, because oil, hot stuff, never good. Got the turbos clocked where they need to be. We're gonna get started on this driver's side drain line.
Right now we're trying to figure out how to run the oil feed lines. We've got them somewhat mapped out as to what we're wanting to do. And then next thing that we're gonna get started on is swapping out the stock K-member for the BMR tubular K-member. And then we'll probably get started on the fuel lines, and if we don't end up doing that, then we're probably going to drop the engine in tonight. All right, so we just took out the steering rack, lower control arm bolts holding in the stock K member, and there's two more that are under here. I don't know if you guys can see those. Get you a little better view of those two bolts. There's two on each side, and then there's two in the back on each side. And then the steering rack, there's one bolt that's in the top, goes through here, and then the lower control arm has one bolt that goes through as well.
So we got the old fuel hat out of the car, and we're in the process of pulling the old fuel out of the tank so we can drop the new fuel head in, which Austin is currently staring at.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So yeah, once we get this drained out, we'll be able to drop in that new top hat, or drop in that new fuel hat. There we go. And yeah, then we'll start running lines up to the engine bay. Before you know it, this bad girl's gonna be dropped in. Yo.
Yo.
Yo. Austin is currently working on the factory fuel level sender. You have to rewire it to the new fuel head, which you have two connectors here, and then these wires here go to what?
Those go to the factory wiring. So we're putting in his new 4 fuel head. It's got twin TI 525s on it, which are supportive of E85, race fuel, everything else. So when you're putting this back in, make sure your fuel level sender doesn't get hung up on anything, because you will be taking this back out to fix it. But basically all you do is just drop it back in like you took the factory one out. It's a little bit of a complicated process trying to get everything in and not mess anything up, but just rotate it a little bit until it drops down in. And like I said, be careful of that fuel level sender. Once you get it in here, there is a tab that's on here, and you just have to make sure that you get it in the correct groove so that it'll seat properly, and then you'll be able to adjust your feed and return lines however you need to get your lines up in there. We'll probably run ours kind of toward the outside of the car, and probably put this one like that, and then the lines will come up through here, and then you'll take these fittings off, put them on the new fuel lines, but we'll show you guys that coming up. But the only thing left to do is put this factory ring back on and get these these fittings out of the way, obviously. Pretty much all these cars are gonna have to use channel locks or something, bend that up to be able to get this ring out and get it back in, and then you can put them back down flat once you have the new hat put in and all the lines done and everything else, so that rubber grommet has something to bite onto. Get this ring started by hand, and then you just take a screwdriver and you got these little tabs right here that you can use. There's also a tool that's specifically made for fuel pumps to get them out, but I don't have one, so we're just gonna use a flathead and wham bam it in. And then once it's back in, we'll show you guys how we do the feed and return lines and get the fuel lines up to the rails.
What we're doing now is removing all the factory fuel lines. They go all the way up to the engine bay, all the way back to the fuel hat. And you had to do it by removing the inner fender to be able to reach those stock lines. And then once we get those disconnected, we're gonna move on to fitting this new lineup we got up to the engine bay, and then we're gonna wait till we obviously drop the motor in and get the fuel rails on to fit up from the up to the regulator and then to the fuel rail. So once we get the motor in, we'll finish off all the fuel lines, but start back by the fuel hat and we'll move forward. Probably makes matters worse, doesn't it?
What?
It's a light.
There it goes. Gotta take that 10 mil out real quick. Man, all kind of goopy shit.
Hey man, it's old, right? It's almost an antique. Yeah, pop those lines off and keep moving back.
I need a 10 mil.
A what?
10 mil.
I don't think we have those.
Oh, I need one. Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Sacred. You trying to steal my rocks, man?
What you mean? Sorry, dog. What else is under this thing?
I don't know. Where'd that come from?
I don't even know what that is.
It's a plug.
Well, yeah, but I don't know what kind of plug.
Look at that awesome wiring job on your transmission.
We'll talk about it.
I can get one of them 3/8 ratcheting Milwaukee's.
So what we're doing is removing this little under tray to reach these lines so we can undo them. They go all the way up to here and up to the fuel hat. Got the K member back in the car. Control arms are in. We are currently in the process of removing these S550 brakes. Like I said earlier, we have to remove these because the drag pack that I have, they're 17 inches in the front and they won't clear the big brakes. So you got S197 performance brakes. People will get mad when you call them Brembos because they're not actually Brembos. So get those in, drop this motor in, and then return back to doing the fuel lines because we didn't want to run them up here because we didn't know clearance wise with the forward facing headers and turbos. We just didn't want to get them too close to hot stuff, so get that motor in and we'll start on the fuel lines. S550 brakes are off. S197 brakes are on. But my musclehead ass decided to snap this banjo bolt. Luckily it didn't get stuck down in there, but time to go get a new banjo bolt. Before we drop this motor in, we're going to go ahead, remove this headlight, and then get started on relocating the ECU, because that's got to get relocated underneath the headlight. And then the fuse box just gets twisted and shifted right here and sits in front of the passenger side turbo. It's headed underneath the shield, the radiator cover shield, so...
What the hell?
What? No wonder why these lights didn't work. I bought this car with these headlights in it. One, they're fugly. And two, previous owner didn't tell me they didn't turn on. So, these are going bye-bye. And I have a set of 13, 14 headlights that are going back into this thing, so... Clean it up while we're taking it out. Perfect. Also, we are going to cut out this section here so that the wires connecting to the ECU have room to reach down here. And then once we get that mounted, or moved out of the way at least, she's going in. She's going in. So we got the motor drop back in. Just got to tighten up the bell housing bolts. Everything's sitting pretty good. Yeah, just got to get the bottom nut on that, and then got to do a little wiggling on this side, get the line up all the way, but it's pretty close. Bell housing bolts. Get this cherry picker out of the way. And then start with the fuel lines.
Going down there.
Bell housing bolts, man. So, got one bolt here, one bolt here, here, and here, and then two on top, which we already did. And then we got two starter bolts over here. And after that, it's buttoned up and ready to go. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Where you at, Dad?
That's me.
Yeah, I see you.
I see me too.
Big wrenching, eh?
Big wrenching.
Big wrenching.
Big wrenching. Done.
There she is. She's in. Tubular BMRK members in. Everything's bolting down. Torqued down to spec. And yeah, she's in there. No more cherry picker. This makes me happy. Progress. So yeah, get this lift plate off. Fuel lines. Boss manifold. And yeah, we'll go from there. But that's gonna wrap it up for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, obviously. And stay tuned for when we start this thing up.